These are tough economic times. Let me tell you the worst thing about this recession. The worst thing is that you can't openly hate your job anymore. You have to kind of pretend that you like it. Because you're worried about getting fired. And you have to be sort of grateful. And if you hated your job before this recession, you still hate your job. But now you have to have a big fucking smile on your face every time you go to work. Like, have you ever hated your job to the point you start wondering what injury you would willingly sustain in order to get a little time off? You know, you're like, I'm gonna think a broken leg would get you like a week, right? Would that hurt? That would hurt, I think. Or like, you ever walk into work and you start wondering if you can get lightly hit by a car? Like, just a scrape. And I would, it could be the morning, right? Stop it. But people hate their jobs. And I always find, though, despite that, no one has any sympathy for people that have, like, truly shitty jobs, you know? You always hear somebody complain about, like, a shitty service they got from someone with just a terrible job. And they're like, that guy at Taco Bell at 3 a.m., I thought he had a real attitude. I don't think he cared how my chalupa turned out. Like, you're right. He rubbed his balls on it. He hates his life. But the thing is, people are losing their jobs, people are losing their homes, they're homeless, which sucks. And this is bad, but I have to say, there's nothing more random than when I do and when I do not get changed to a homeless person. Like, I don't have any criteria I use, it's just like, I fear it comes down to how gross they are. Like, sometimes I'm just like, I don't want that to touch, You can just kind of like, move along, that would be better for me. But like, a lot of people have like stupid rules they use, they'll be like, oh, don't give to him. He's just gonna buy booze with it. I'm like, I know what he's gonna do with it. That's why I'm giving him some money. What do you want him to invest in his 401k? He's fucking homeless! You gonna tell the guy just say no? Like, well, you're still homeless, but you are sober. So that's good. That would make that more fun. Another stupid one is people will be like, it's like some guy will have like a little funny sign or he'll do like a little routine and people will say, see, I'm going to give to him. Because at least he's trying. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Just because you're starving and living on the street is no reason to not still be amusing. Entertain me, homeless man! And I may give you a quarter. Or I may not. But speaking of shitty professions, how about being president? Can you imagine how horrible that would be? Because everybody gives you advice. Everybody's got a fucking opinion. Because we got a new president, and all of a sudden everybody's just telling this guy what to do. And a lot of the advice I think sucks. Like, I heard Liz Cheney complaining, and she said in his little speech to the Muslim world in Egypt that she was upset that at no point did he remind the audience that America is the greatest country that ever existed in history. I was like, you're right, I can't believe you didn't say that. That's certainly how I handle all my disagreements. Listen, Bill, before we get started here, we can talk about our disagreements, but I am going to need you to acknowledge that I am the greatest human being in the history of mankind. I just think if we could get that on the table, then, we could discuss our things further. But the thing is, look, this is a great country, there's no doubt about it, nobody's arguing it. But a reasonable mind, like, could disagree, like, it's subjective as greatest of all time, Like, a reasonable person might watch The Real Housewives of New Jersey and not conclude, well, this is the finest society I've ever experienced. I mean, I see it's false. I see this Jacqueline and Danielle, and I don't see how you could be superior to these people. But it is a great country, there's no doubt, but I worry sometimes that there have been great countries that have collapsed, Like, you remember the Soviet Union? You remember those little pesky chaps? Those old scamps up north? Like, they just disappeared. I mean, one day they were the second most powerful country in the world, the next day, just, they didn't exist. Imagine, like, reading the paper that day, you know? You're just like, so, how about that government collapsing? That was pretty fucking weird, wasn't it? Yeah. What do we have now? Nothing. We don't have a government. That is weird. What should we do? I guess just go to work. I don't know. What do you do? What do you do when the government just doesn't exist anymore? It's weird. But like, history's like that to me. Like that. Things happen historically that when you look back, it seems like impossible. You know, it doesn't seem like it happened in your own time. Like, I actually think about World War II a lot of the time because it seems like ancient history, but you know, like my grandparents fought in that. Like, that wasn't that long ago. And like 70 million people died in World War II. And I know what you're thinking. Brian, that's hilarious. But that's not really the funny part of it. But the thing is, like, the whole world was at war. Like, for 5 years, everyone in Europe would pretty much live like this. It was just like, like, there was nobody just like watching TV. Like everybody just like, holy, just bombs are going off like 24 hours a day. We have 2 wars going on right now, and nobody notices. Like, every once in a while, you read about it in the paper, and you're like, still? Still over there? That is so weird. So I got engaged recently, just to shift gears a little bit, which is weird, because everybody keeps telling me the same thing. All these people are coming up to me like, how are you going to do it, man? One woman? How are you going to have sex with just one woman? How are you going to have sex with other women? And I'm like, listen, pal, if there's one thing I know how to do, it's not get laid. I could go years, nothing. But people keep coming up to me with these ridiculous hypotheticals, you know? Like some guy will be like, they'll be like, what if that hot bartender walks over here and she's like, I want to fuck you right now. Are you telling me you're not going to do it? And I'm like, well, what if that male bartender comes over and offers me $1 million to suck his dick? That's still a pretty tough call, you know? But the good news is neither of those things are ever going to fucking happen. So I'm not worried about it. But it is weird to have, like, when you get engaged, somebody does, like, own your penis in a way that never happened before to you. Like, you used to just kind of own it yourself, and then you're like, alright, I think you're in charge of this from now on. But, like, so my erections are under strict control. There's some pretty serious paperwork involved. You know, she'll be like, and when did the alleged boner take place? And it lasted how long? Interesting. And where did this take place? And this was at work? Very interesting. And the result was masturbating in the office bathroom? Well, I'm going to go ahead and approve that erection, but I'm afraid in these tough economic times, that office ejaculation comes with a pretty hefty fine. All right, thanks very much.